Hey, with your evening story channel, I post new interesting stories every day. Subscribe and click the bell to not miss it. Camille was one of the few women who did not envy her friends. Well, except for a little white envy, and somewhere deep in a secret corner of her soul, there was a tiny desire to live like Emily, having both an apartment and a big summer house by the sea. A little house, as Emily called it. 2 stories with a large lawn and access to the beach. But that was only because Camille loved the sea so much. In general, Camille was very unpretentious, ingenuous, sensitive, and uncomplicated. A lot of people took advantage of that. Such a person would give the last one. Camille worked as a lab technician at the clinic, and only closer to the 30-year anniversary found a guy who also did not refuse. The guy liked her. They started living together in Camille's apartment. Camille had buried her mother a couple of years before, and her father had gone to live in the suburbs with his widowed former boss. He had just retired at the time. Evelyn had invited him herself the first time to help set up or fix the gas boiler. Then she called him again. Oh, and it was hard for her. Without a man in such a big house with a huge plot of land, a young garden and a lawn, which she could not mow herself and did not know how. God did not give her and her husband children, but the spouses acquired a large household. After all, both of them were in respectable positions. Once a week came the gardener, but it was getting close to retirement, and after the sudden death of her husband, Evelyn thought despondent was she had savings for a rainy day, but did not want to waste them instantly on servants, on the gardener, yes, on the cook. Camille's father was not a bad household man. Very quiet and inconspicuous, though. He was her former subordinate as chief accountant at the firm, but she always consulted him and respected him very much. That's how they got together. Both single and not yet old. And Evelyn felt like she was back behind a stone wall. But she didn't talk much about her personal life at work. There were hardly any girlfriends. She liked Camille very much. Quiet, kind, and easygoing like her father. And she was very happy for the girl when she got a boyfriend. Christopher was not handsome, not a businessman, just a regular guy. Worked as a driver. The kids came to visit. Evelyn set the table, so Camille didn't propose marriage. Evelyn asked, as they finished the last preparations and sliced tomatoes, sausage, bread. No, exhaled the stepdaughter. Don't get upset and don't rush things. Men don't like that. Can't the aunt give him a nudge or something? I'm 30 years old. All my friends, family, kids. I'm not beautiful. I see myself in the mirror, but I'd like some stability. You tell me if he loves you. I don't know. He's not talking. Well, you're sure he does. Then we'll give him a push. Then we'll have children, a family, care, and respect. Do you love him? Or do you just want to get married? It's about time someone asked you to marry someone. I love him. Embarrassingly blushing, Camille answered. Let's propose to our men, I to your father and you to Christopher, that we sign together and make a party in a restaurant. And with that, we'll give them a push. When? Tonight. Your father's the one who suggested we legalize our relationship. When the men drank to the meeting and to dating, Evelyn started a conversation and caught Camille's appreciative look and decided to take the application to the wedding agency in a week. But a couple days later, Christopher didn't return from his flight. His phone was not answering. For several days, Camille searched for him, calling friends, acquaintances, and relatives, but no one knew anything. And now Evelyn was comforting a young woman who was crying on her shoulder. Disappeared without explanation. He was supposed to be back on Wednesday. Camille sobbed. And at the firm, she asked if his car was still there. So he arrived on Wednesday. He signed the delivery note and hurried home, they said. But he never showed up. Phone numbers unavailable. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't even want to get married. He doesn't dare to say. After all, he's been living with me for almost a year. My mother and her sister and her family live 60 kilometers away from us in the village. And he settled down with me in the city. I even wanted to register him in my apartment. But I have another problem. Are you pregnant? Yes. How'd you find out? Did Camille look down? Yes, I can see that. I guessed. I had a feeling. I'm a woman too. I want to reassure you. Children are the most important thing in our lives. They're the light in the darkness. It's the meaning of existence. Believe me, even though I don't have any. God punished me. I had my first abortion. I came back late from the disco. A dark, deserted square. A tough guy. He put me out, twisted my arms, put his hand over my mouth. Anyway, trouble happened to me, and I was ashamed to tell my mom. That's what happened. My first date with adulthood, I was 18 years old. Young was stupid, did not prompt, did not explain what could be the consequences. My girlfriend's mother, who worked at the women's clinic, arranged everything. I confessed to her alone. Poor Aunt Evelyn rushed to hug Camille's stepmother. I can't even imagine. How'd you get over something like that? You know, you're like a mom to me now. But it's not all bad luck. There's a black spot. My Aunt Evelyn had to quit her job. Was hired on a part-time and temporary basis. And now I've been downsized. I've got the last week till the end of the month. What am I going to do next? I don't know. Who's going to hire me when I'm pregnant? For this, don't worry. I know someone will get me a job. You have to work till the maternity leave. And there we all will have pleasant troubles, smiled warmly Evelyn. But Camille had to work as a cleaner. She and Evelyn faced the injustice of a cruel world and indifferent employers. They had to clean a small bar not far from home. There was no word from Christopher. He did not show up at work. His relatives filed a missing persons report with the police. Camille tearfully recalled their short life together. Time was running out. Adriana had only 2 weeks left to work before her maternity leave. One day she spotted a homeless man on crutches not far from their place. He was lying on a bench, sat down and dropped his crutch on the ground. Then awkwardly tried to bend over and pick it up, and fell himself. Camille ran up to help the homeless to gather near their bar. She knew everyone by sight, constantly giving money. Leftover food from the feast the elderly cook treated her to. Everyone knew this young woman had a good heart. Today, Camille received her paycheck. She had already shared it with the destitute and left a little to live on, even though she herself was in a tight spot. But she couldn't bear to look at other people's plight. And here's a new handicapped beggar. Oh, let me help you. She took the limping homeless man under her arms. Come on, daughter, you're the one with the potbelly. I'll get up slowly. Thank you. I just came by train to your town with no money and no acquaintances. And where to sleep? I don't know. Maybe there are still cellars in the houses. The locks are not locked. You don't need to go to cellars. Here, Camille held out the money she had. Tears came to the beggar's eyes, but suddenly he threw off his crutches and took off his wig. And at once he looked younger and smiled. And Camille froze and became numb with astonishment and felt the ground slipping from under her feet and had to sit down on the bench. In front of her stood her beloved. It was Christopher. Why this masquerade, Christopher? Barely audible, asked the woman. I had to make sure and prove it to someone, even though I had made up my mind a long time ago. But Dad still didn't believe it. Dad was approaching them, a well-dressed elderly man who had a cool Jeep. You see, my father had been burned many times and said that women only want our money. I'm sorry, daughter, we're very wealthy people. I have to be careful. Christopher's dad came to them. What about your relatives in the village? Camille asked, perplexed. Mom, sister are good actresses. I too played a simple poor guy driver for a very long time. But why did you leave me without explaining anything? How could you? I love you with all my heart. I thought I'd never see you again. It's cruel. You left me pregnant. That's a test too. What kind of people are you? Camille, who was already angry, glared at me. If you're rich, you can do anything. Are you a good person? Sincerely amazing, honest, emotionally said the father Christopher. I approve of my son's choice. Yes, and you asked me. And Camille cried bitterly. It turns out, and all my failures are built by you. Son, she's smart and she knows. Daddy, maybe we shouldn't have approached the woman like that and tried to hug her, Christopher asked. It was wrong and cruel what we did to her. After all, she is expecting a child from me. But she met all the problems with dignity and remained a human being. My respect and respect. But Camille stood up and pushed her son's hand away and walked past her father with her head held high. Perhaps she would forgive her lover, though he had disappointed her greatly. Someday she would forgive him with all her kind and sensitive heart. But now let him run, let him repent and realize. Not everything is allowed to the rich, and money does not decide everything.